Hello. Hey, everybody. My name is Poeschl, and welcome to my semi hydroponics talk. This is kind of a weird topic for a mini bar, but that's why we love mini bar. And to give you a little you guys a little bit of a history on how I got into semi hydroponics. So I've always grown plants for as long as I remember, and it was kind of on the same spectrum of plants, more like 20 house plants, maybe 10 orchids, and that was it. Mainly because the upkeep for plants is it's time consuming, right? You got to water every week, you got to check up on them, you got to make sure they're okay. So I never really gotten past the crazy numbers, but this summer, hey, COVID, a lot of people across the world are collecting more plants because you're home more, you're able to take care of them, you don't travel much anymore. So with that in mind, I was like, well, I can get a few more plants. I can get into this hobby a little bit more. So what I ended up doing was I first started looking into soil and different ways of creating my own soil because I'm kind of a nerd about chemistry and fertilizing and just plant nutrition. And so I was like, I'm going to make my own soil. And in that process, I bought this like huge bag. I can't even show you how big this is. This is like literally this bag came up to my knees of LECA on accident. And this is because I have no idea what 50 liters mean. And so this thing showed up on my front door and I'm like, well, crap, now I got to figure out how to use this. So that's how I actually got into semi hydroponics. And then I'll show you guys what LECA is. I don't have any slides because why would I have slides for a demo like this, right? So this is LECA. Hopefully you can see okay. It's like little clay balls. And how it works is what it stands for lightweight expanded clay aggregate. And if you can see, it's like tiny little pores on the clay itself. So it's like unfired clay, or no, it's fire clay, but unglazed clay. And how it works is that when you have it in a container like this, you have a water reservoir at the very bottom, and then the clay balls will just start wicking all that water up, and up to the plant. So you're going to have a gradient of water concentration. So it's going to be the wettest down here, and then less wet, and then maybe even dry up here. So that's kind of how LECA works. It wicks water. It holds water really well. And it also wicks at different rates. And so I actually have two kinds of LECA here. This one that I showed you, the more porous one, is this one. And then this one is, this one's called Hydro Crunch. The other one's called Hydroton. You can get these at the local hydroponic stores. There's actually two in Minnesota. One's in St. Paul called Eco Supply, and the other one is in Richfield called Greener Gardens. So they both carry LECA. You can also buy it on Amazon. I don't recommend it. It's really expensive right now because I think people are really getting into this hobby. So anyway, how this the benefits of LECA. I want to kind of go over that because you're like, why should I convert all my plants to live in these clay balls? So with growing your plants in soil, after I collected a few more plants, I'm like, oh man, there's all these fungus gnats around and they're just buzzing everywhere and they're in my face. So fungus gnats love to live in moist soil, and you have to kind of deal with them. You're either using like sprays or insecticide on top of the soil, and it gets kind of gross. So growing stuff in LECA is just really, really clean, and it reduces the pest. I'm not going to say it eliminates pest. It reduces pest by quite a bit. The other benefit is that you can't overwater in this. So there is a period of acclimation where the plant needs to adjust to the environment. But once it's adjusted, the roots basically wick the water into the system. So you can't overwater your plant, which is huge for a lot of people who are not good at watering, or they underwater. I'm kind of a neglectful plant parent, and I tend to underwater my plants. So then I'll see, signs of wilting, and then I'll water. With this, as long as you keep the reservoir kind of full like this, and when you have it in like a plastic deli container, like I do here, you can always just visually look at the water level and be like, oh, that thing is fine for another month. So that is also amazing. The other benefits, so I started thinking about, when COVID is over, hopefully, I'm going to be traveling again, and who's going to take care of all my plants when I'm traveling? So you can basically leave these plants in these setups for probably 2 weeks and above, which is amazing. Yeah, definitely recommend. So some of the downside of LECA is you kind of have to, so when you get a brand new plant, you basically have to transition it. And that is the majority of the work here. You basically got to take the plant, you got to clean the roots off, or sorry, not clean the roots off, clean the dirt off of the roots. And so it's clean, and then you have to replant it in a pot. So I'll kind of show you guys where this idea came from. So there's a hydroponics. I'm sure everybody knows what that is. It's kind of scary. There's a lot of tubes. There's a lot of hoses and timers and all that stuff. But there's also an area of hydroponics called passive hydroponics. So what that is this basil plant. It's in a top potato container, go Minnesota. This is grown in a system called the Kratky system, and it's invented by a guy with the last name of Kratky. So that's why it's called that. So the idea is that you have one of these net pots. You can buy these at the hydroponic stores too. And then you put LECA inside. And then you put your basil plant, like a cutting or a seed even. If you're growing from a seed, you want to put it in like something called a rock wool, or you can use a cotton ball too to kind of just seat the seed inside here so it doesn't fall out. And you can kind of see the roots grow into a water reservoir. And this is basically the idea of passive hydroponics. So this used to be a really, really big basil plant. I kind of gave it a nice trim, and then the other stems I'm actually rooting in water right now, so then it grows more roots, and then I can take this plant and toss it and put a new plant in here. So this is essentially the passive hydroponics method, and this got translated over into what we call semi hydroponics, and this is basically the setup that I showed you there. I have a few other setups I kind of want to show you. This is a plant that just kind of went really, really crazy in the setup. When I planted it, it was 3 stalks about this size at the beginning of summer. Kind of rescued it from Home Depot. It looked really sad. It had all these like crunchy leaves, and put it in LECA, and now it's like this. So if we have time, I might repot this and show you guys how that works. And this is another pot that I like to use. So this is the other mechanism. I can show it to you in this other pot, but it's kind of messy. So I'll show you in this. So this is just the pot that holds the LECA. So you put the LECA in here, and you put your plant in here, and you put LECA on top. So this works just like soil. But this has a wick system, and this is a cotton wick. If you can find inorganic wick, that's better. It doesn't break down as fast. And then there's a water reservoir, so there's no drainage on this hole. And then you put this in here, and you put your plant in there. You fill it up to, there's a nice like little marker on the inside. I don't know if you can see this. So that kind of tells you where the water maxes out at. And then you can basically leave a plant in here forever. This is like, I don't know, you can probably leave this in here for a month for a smaller plant. And I will go into fertilizer. I'm reading some of the comments here. I will go into the fertilizer very, very soon here. So this is a really cool pot too. This has a little water and indicator, so you can actually see how much water it is. Or if you're like DIY like me, you can get a plastic cup, net cup, string, and now you have your own semi-hydroponics container. All right, so once you get your plant potted, well, actually, I want to show you guys this container too. This is so cool. So this is a thing that kind of pops out, and the water reservoir sits at the bottom. Okay, anyway, nutrients. So once you get your pot in here, this is also another pot I want to show you guys, because when you're starting out with hydroponics, you're probably not going to have these pots. You got to either order them or kind of make your own. So this is a pot with drainage. I put a plastic bag in here, a Ziploc, and it holds the water. And then I set my plant inside the plastic bag and nobody knows the wiser. All right, fertilizer. So LECA in itself, there's no nutrition in here whatsoever. These are just clay balls. With soil, you have a ton of, decayed stuff and just compost, great stuff in soil. And so when you're growing plants in soil, a lot of people don't even fertilize. Like, you don't need to if you have really good soil. And usually when you get a plant, they use like these little beads in there, so you don't really have to worry about it. So you just water. With hydroponics, you're basically taking the nutrition away from the plant because it's not growing in soil anymore, and you're putting it into this inorganic medium, and you have to supplement it with fertilizer. So the way you do it is so easy mode. I'll give you guys an overview of the easy mode. You can just get a jug, of a milk jug, 1 gallon, or you can get distilled water. I'll go into that in a sec. And then you read the label on your fertilizer and you divide it by 4. So you dilute the fertilizer, you put it in here, shake it up, and that's your nutrient feed. That's easy mode. But you're all nerds, so let me give you the more scientific way of doing it. So what I do is I start with 0 water. So this is a water filter that takes all the hard minerals and additives within tap water, and then it filters down to 0 ppm. That's why it's called 0 water. And what that means is there's likely still stuff in there, but it takes all the minerals out of it. So salts are really, really not great for your water, and it can kind of accumulate. So when you're doing a lot of LECA plant growing, you'll see sometimes at the very top layer, there's like a white, fuzzy looking kind of crusty thing on top. I'm like trying to see if I actually have any on my plants, and I don't, because I use distilled water. So when you remove those salts, you're also removing calcium and magnesium from your tap water. Tap water actually has a really high level, like a good level of calcium added. So when you're removing it, you're going to have to put it back, because plants need calcium. Plants need nitrogen. So what I end up doing is I use like a giant bucket. I do like 2 or 3 gallons at a time. And then I measure my fertilizer via this thing called a ppm meter. So instead of measuring in teaspoons and whatnot, I use like a millimeter pipette, and I put the fertilizer in. So there's a few ingredients and nutrients that goes into it. One of the most important one I like is this thing called CalMag. It's calcium magnesium supplement. But sometimes when you look at your fertilizers and you read the ingredients on them, so like this is a hydroponics fertilizer. When you read the ingredients on them, you can see that there's actually calcium added to some of these. So you can actually get down into a rabbit hole of like trying to figure out calcium percentage and like getting all your nutrients in a row. So you can likely find a fertilizer that is high in calcium. It's just I think I needed a supplement more, so I always get the extra calcium. So the process is this has to go first when you're mixing solutions because of a thing called nutrient locking. I think that's what happens when you put things in a different order and certain elements within those nutrients bond with other elements and they become another thing. Chemistry people, help me out. And then that becomes a different element and then it doesn't offer nutrient to your plants anymore. So be careful with that. This always goes first if you're using this. If you're not, don't worry about it. Then you have this general hydroponics line of fertilizer. You can go and get just a one for all fertilizer. Like for my orchids, I just use this and I just do 1/4 of a teaspoon. This is what I'm trying out, the general hydroponics line. So there's 3 of them. I don't really know why there's 3 of them. It's kind of annoying. So I'm probably not going to do this next time. Some of the other stuff that I add that I really, really like, I want to show you guys this one. This is a seaweed. This helps with root growth. So when you're putting a plant into a new system, of course, it's going to be like, you know, struggling with the roots a little bit. So that helps. And this is kind of a cult favorite amongst people. It's called Super Thrive. I don't know if it actually works, but it's supposedly to help with transplant shock. So yeah, put some of that in. I'm not going to give you guys like the complete measurements now, but I will post it on my bio. Maybe I'll link my Instagram there so you can see there, and I'll post kind of the formula, the cocktail that I make. It's kind of complicated, and we don't have enough time here. So I want to maybe show you guys repotting this and taking this out and taking a look at the roots. Okay, I'm like looking at the comments here. Okay, so you can see this is, the roots are kind of growing out here. You know, it's very happy. This might be kind of loud, so I will maybe aim this down a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So, oh, the other thing to mention, in here I also have pumice. Pumice is another inorganic medium. It is like a little tiny rock. It's porous, it wicks. It wicks better than LECA. So I was noticing this plant was more thirsty, so I added some pumice to it, just as an experiment. So when you have a pot like this, I kind of want to put this guy in here so it has more room. So what you do is what I like to do is fill the bottom layer with LECA like this and take this entire crazy root ball and, oh, hold on, gotta get rid of this wick. And stick it in here. And this is what you would do with a clean plant too. It just won't have all these like little LECA balls kind of attached to it. This is the roots. When this happens, you know that the roots are really, really enjoying this environment because they are really actively sucking the water out of these LECA balls. And with some plants, like they just suck on. It's quite amazing. And so I just kind of stick this in here and fill it up with LECA, just like a normal soil. And this is a lot less messy. So you guys kind of get the point, right? I will finish this one up later, but that's the general gist. Okay, let's see. I think there's some, oh, yes, very important. pH up and pH down. I totally forgot about this. Thank you for reminding me from my rain chat. So plant nutrition, you have all your stuff, right? You have all your nutrients and your nitrogen and all of that stuff in your water mix. But it can be ineffective if your pH of your water is off. So plants absorb nutrition at a pH range of 5.5 to 6.5. That's kind of the ideal range for them to effectively wick up all of the nutrients. So you will need a thing like this called a pH meter. And what you do is you just stick it into the water. So I can kind of give you a demo of this. So this is my plant nutrient water that I just took that plant off of. You stick it in here, if you can see, and you can kind of see the pH changing. This one is actually pretty high because I don't think I've changed the, oh, never mind, it's a 702, 7.02. So this one is actually in the right range. But sometimes when your plant is in water for a while, the pH actually naturally rises. So I like to actually pH down to 5.5, and then the plant will kind of naturally go up as the plant lives. So this is basically pH down. It takes the pH down, pH up, takes the pH up. And I rarely have to use pH up because I always find my nutrients to be more on the basic level. So I typically use pH down more. I only use pH up when I kind of screw up and put too much pH down in. So you want both of these. And on the easy mode side, if you don't want to worry about any of this, I've seen people succeed with, again, like pinching some fertilizer into a jug of water and tap water and just let it go, and their plants do fine. So don't really worry about it if this is so overwhelming. It's kind of a deep rabbit hole when you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta research this and research that. What else can I tell you guys? Fungus and mold, yes. So fungus and mold does not happen in LECA as much. But it does happen when you're first transitioning the plant. So with orchids, you see this more often because they have these exposed root system. So kind of show you this one. You can kind of see the roots on the top. They're kind of growing out and growing into the LECA. On my Phalaenopsis here, you can actually, I don't know if you can see this, but this actually did have some mold growing on the roots themselves. And this is because in the process of transitioning, especially for orchids, roots will rot and die away. And then new roots that are adapted to this medium will grow down into the LECA. So it's very apparent in orchids because they have these roots that kind of go out and explore and want to attach to trees. But with houseplants, you can't really see them, right? So what I usually do there is have this stuff called Physan 20. People in the orchid world swear by this stuff. This is a algicide, fungicide, bactericide, and viricide. So this is almost like a preventative treatment, and you can get a bottle of this and dilute it down into a sprayer bottle. So whenever I take care of my plants on a monthly basis, I'll do a flush, and I'll show you guys what a flush looks like. I will, after the flush, I'll spray some of this stuff into the LECA and have it like soak into the roots to get rid of any, bad stuff that might be growing. The other thing I've seen people do is mix a little bit of hydrogen peroxide into the nutrient water. It actually oxygenates the roots. So it's pretty cool that way. And I might actually start doing that because it also prevents things like algae. So when you're growing in like a plastic pot like this, you'll see sometimes algae growth like down here. And yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about flushing because I have this in my hand. So you'll see I have some of these holes here. I don't know if these holes are necessary. I just did this because with orchids need more air, but with LECA, you likely don't need these holes because it's already very airy. You can kind of see the round LECAs meet together, and then there's a lot of negative space. So there's definitely air kind of going into the pot. But you have this like hole right here. This is the drainage hole, and this one is, I should have probably maybe placed it right here. You want to place it about a third of the way. So you can have a third of water and then a third of LECA. That's how generally it's recommended to do. And then when you flush in a container like this, you run water through this entire thing and let it flush out this hole. And then you just kind of drain it like this by tipping it. With a container like this, my deli container, I kind of like it this way because I can just run this whole thing underwater and I don't have to tip anything. And this way you get a bigger reservoir of water, so I can be more lazy and not have to give it more nutrients. when you see this one, you see there's a lot of LECA here. So it's taking up all the space that you could have your nutrient water in. So this is why I don't like this setup as much, and I like this setup more. Okay, any other questions? Basil, bok choy. No, 2 LED panels. Yes, grow lights. I can show you guys my crazy system on this floor here. If we go on a tour of my dirty house, don't judge. This is one of my favorite things right now. Maybe this is the next MinneBar talk. I don't know. This is a IKEA cabinet. Oh, can't really see it. So this is called a Fabricore cabinet, and it's an IKEA glass display cabinet, and inside of it, it's basically a humidity chamber, and you can kind of see like I got plants kind of growing attached to a wire rack. There's a fan. You definitely want airflow. I got a humidifier hiding back there to give it extra humidity. I don't really know if it's needed. And some people actually replace this glass shelf with a wire shelf, so you get equal humidity and airflow throughout this whole thing. I also have another one upstairs, but you see there's grow lights in the system. And here in my house, I got grow lights all over here with these shelves. I got grow lights kind of attached in here to just kind of help it out in the winter. And I got grow lights on the bottom shelf. They're pointing up. So who knows? I haven't seen them grow down yet, so I assume it's working. Any other questions? My favorite websites and books. There are no books on this. I feel like this topic is a lot of just internet research because it's so new. It's really been developed and refined in the past 2 years. No, not 2 years, sorry, 20 years. So a really good website in relations to orchid growing is firstraise.com. So that website is maintained by the inventor of the inventor of semi hydroponics for orchids. So he has a ton of information on it. And one of the biggest tips that I learned from him is LECA preparation. So 30-second warning. I'll tell you real quick, soak your LECA. Once you get it out of the bag, soak it for at least 2 days because there's a lot of binding agents that goes into making these, and there's chemicals in here. So you want to soak it in water and make sure all that chemical comes out of it and all the clay dust comes out of it so your plants can start with a healthy start. So, all right, and I'm going to sign off. If you want to learn more, follow me on Instagram.